It's your first one, Mark, where you're not the guest. Do you want to?
I have no idea what I'm doing, Carl.
That's never stopped me.
Exactly.
I'll lead in then. I'm probably the most boring guy on the call. I'll start with. My name is Carl Langford. I've been in IT for about 15 years and focused on security for probably the last 8 or so. In comparison to the chaps I've got on the call today, gosh, very, very minimal amount of experience, but I'm really thrilled to have you here. I'm going to ask some questions, so I'll ask lots of little questions of everyone. And the first one would be, Mark, can you introduce yourself? And then we'll ask Jayson to introduce himself.
Absolutely. Mark Mayfrey, CTO Beyond Trust, and stoked to be talking to my buddy Jayson.
And I'm Jason Street, hacker, helper, human. It's like just a guy who likes to help educate people and by robbing them. So
I like the sound of that. I mean, do you want to start by kicking us off and telling us how you rob people?
Well, companies hire me to do, I don't do red teaming. People think that it's like, they confuse a lot of the stuff that I do with like red teaming. I used to do red teaming, but I do security awareness engagements is what I call it. Someone gave me the moniker of security awareness operative, which I love because it makes me sound way cooler than I am. And it's, so what I do is I use the techniques of a red teamer. It's like I will literally physically go into a location and rob you. It's like, I mean, like I will steal laptops. I will steal badges. It's like I will insert like a rubber ducky or USB devices or implants in your server rooms. I will do all those different kinds of things. But at the same time, I'm doing it for an educational purpose. There's no compromise. There's no payload that goes and compromises or looks for a vulnerability. It's just showing the act that I could have done that, which is what I'm trying to show. It's like that could have had a payload on it that would have actually gone in and stolen data or committed or done some kind of compromise. And then, but when I leave, I then exit for 2 minutes, which shows that I successfully escaped. And then I come back, usually with a representative of the company, and I right then and there, I then talk to every employee that I compromised. And I explain to them, I come back up to them, and I have to have a very awkward conversation with them, but I'm very good with awkward. And I explain to them, like, look, I was a bad guy when you first saw me. I was trying to steal from you. And do you notice how, and then I coached them, say, you notice how you saw the way I acted, and you probably thought in the back of your head, well, you have permission from your company to stop me when that happens. You need to be empowered to be able to say, and I go through and I coach each and every one of them. Sometimes we've had to actually, after the branch of the bank is closed or something, everybody comes together and I just do a blanket class on security awareness for them because I compromised them so badly. And so I do those kind of things. And then I give talks. It's like to companies where I give them one-on-one educational classes on how I do these kinds of things and what they can do to better protect themselves.
So what was your kind of trajectory to end up doing this sort of work, right? I mean, one of the things I think for a lot of people starting out in security, they hear stories like this and like the sort of work that you do, which is obviously, I think, just pretty rad. How did you kind of end up where you're at in the sense of your trajectory in life and kind of being able to do this in the first place? Not even just kind of learning the skills, but just kind of finding this as a thing to do professionally.
Just randomness. It's like my life has always been weird. It's like my origin story starts with me being a high school dropout who used to live behind a dumpster. It's like, so, and then I got into a lot of childhood trauma. We'll skip past that part. And then I got into physical security and law enforcement because it's like I didn't want, I did not like the idea of bad people getting away with doing bad things. So it's like, so I started doing that. And I was one of those stupid people in security and law enforcement who believed that I was supposed to protect and serve. And it's like, and I was there to actually try to make things better. It gets demoralizing sometimes. It's like with certain people, it's like that you work with. Some got it. There were a lot of good people on there, but it was also people that I got ostracized from because I did not like the way things were done. So I did not stay in there long. And then I heard a commercial about getting an IT, it's like, do you like working on computers? Do people ask you to help things? And it's like, and that was like I'm very old. That was like in 94 or 95. And I was like, yeah, I do that. And I was getting tired of getting shot at. Like I literally had been shot at. And so I was like, yeah, I'd like to do that. So I got into IT support. And then in 2000, I found out that you could do computers and security. And that changed my whole life. I was like, oh my God, I can do work on computers and security and no one shoots at me? Yeah, I'll take that. It's like, and then it's like full circle now because now I have the possibility of getting shot at again. But still, it was awesome. And so I started doing the blue team stuff, which I highly recommend people. Everybody wants to start off, I just want to be a red teamer. I just want to break things. And I'm like, no, that is the worst way to get into this. You want to start in blue team, learn how the businesses operate, learn how the companies operate, learn how the technologies that are being used, learn how to implement those properly, learn those disciplines there, learn those intricacies, then figure out how to break them, which is how I became a red teamer. I started in blue team, and then I realized I was missing part of it. It's like I'm building these defenses, but I'm not really looking at it like, how would I break them? I'm looking at them like best practices. I'm looking at them like, this is good technology, or this should protect us very well, without looking about like, well, how do I actually, and then I started getting curious, like, so I started breaking and I tried to figure out, and being a hacker, it's like, I'm like finding very interesting ways to break in and then creating defenses to stop that. It's like, so I loved getting people that would come in to the bank that I worked at and going like, haha, I thought someone would try to get that. That's why I put that little trap there. And now I know that you were trying to come in and we blocked your IP address from the firewall. So I loved doing that. And then I got into it more, and I hate the networking pen testing side of it because it's a little boring for me. It's like I just don't. So
what's boring about it? Like
just do it. It's on a screen, and it's like, and I'm getting. I've got access, or I've gotten a vulnerability, but so I started doing, and I was inspired by this other person who gave a talk about doing the physical side of it, and I'm like, oh, I can incorporate some of my physical security stuff, and I can do it like break in person. And so I convinced the bank that I worked at, and this is what I tell people, it's like, if you want to get into the physical security side of breaking into things, it's usually best to start with the company that you work at and ask them, it's like, hey, can I start trying to do, physical engagements? Can I start doing the red teaming stuff on our companies to see what our posture looks like? That is a good way to do it. And that's how I started. I had a very forgiving and lenient company. It's like upper management who actually believed in security and believed in me, who allowed me to do the physical stuff. It's like breaking in and actually robbing the bank branches. And it turned out I was really good at robbing people. It's like in person. And doing the social engineering and doing I don't even like to call it social engineering, because it's like, to me, it was literally most of my ability to mirror people was just based off childhood trauma. It's like just trying to figure out how people looked, how people reacted, like, okay, this person's not happy with me, this person's okay with me, and just being able to see how people's perceptions, and because human behavior has always fascinated me because it's so weird to how I think, being on the spectrum. So I'm like, it was just fascinating. So it's like I use that in my ability. It's like, it's not really social engineering. I do it based on human perception, human nature. I call it deception through via perception. And so I did that, and then I just got into it. And then in 2015, that's when everything changed. 2015, I was breaking into a government facility, and I piggybacked off of a woman who let me in. She assumed that I was coming from another door because I did the special kind of step thing where I wait with my leg up around the corner till I hear someone. And so then when I hear them come in, I put my other leg down and I start, because that starts you on a natural gait. So like you're already walking and coming from the door. It's just human perception. It's like subconsciously
Right.
they perceive that, okay, this person was already in transit from one door to the other, versus if I started from a full stop, my gait would be different. And so I just followed her in, but she looked at me suspicious because I didn't put my badge on. I didn't badge in. And also I had a weird shirt on. I'm sure it's like I come with warning labels because I just like, like the challenge. And but she let me in. So I go in and she goes right. I always go left because human nature makes us tend to turn right. So I always turn left when I go somewhere. And so I go into the first office, compromise them. I'm successful, yay me. And then I go to the next one, and then I compromise them. And then I come out of the hallway again, and I notice her down the hallway talking to someone, very concerned. I can tell by their facial expressions, and they're looking at me. I can tell exactly what the conversation is. She realized she made a mistake. She realized she shouldn't have let me in, and now she's trying to correct it. And between me and her is that door that I was able to get in and out of. And it hit me. It's like I could leave, and then yay me, I'm successful. I completed the task. I compromised them. But does that really give them what they wanted? It's did that? I mean, they're going to get a report in 3 months telling them, what they did and how they failed. And so I realized, but what if I let her fix it? What if I let her catch me? What can we do?
Yeah.
And so I walked past them. And I said, I even said, hi, how you doing? And go into another office, compromise another person. Mid-compromise, security comes in furious. That was like, I was like, I instantly regret this decision. But it's like, I survived.
Hopefully not with like tasers in hand or something like that.
Yeah,
but let me ask
close.
You mentioned I've only had I'd say mild experience doing like physical pen tests or anything in that realm, and it's interesting the kind of tricks that you pick up, right? Like the being on the cell phone, which people immediately just feel like, you must be there because you're on the phone, and the right mode of walking as you were just describing. I mean that little nuance, right? Like how do you kind of like learn that over time? Or like I assume there was as many times when you're figuring out some of these different nuance to of how to approach situations, especially in a physical sense, right? Like where you kind of like learn by it going wrong at some end, right? In the same way that we would if you're doing kind of the remote based pen test or something like that. Like how did you kind of build that knowledge over time of some of those kind of nuanced techniques?
I think a lot of it started out, and it's like, and also people underestimate the wonderful teaching method of failing. It's like I have failed so much. It's like I gave a talk once one year just on nothing but my failures, not like cool failures. I mean, like I just screwed up. Don't do this because we need that. It's like, it's not about failing. It's about not giving up and continuing is what is the key. And so I've learned just all these different techniques. They literally started out and I've never read social engineering books. It's like, I don't try to watch social engineering talks because I don't want to feel like I'm copying someone else or I'm going after or mimicking someone. Because the way that my mind works, it's like I just get very paranoid about that. But it's literally been just through my life. It's like, especially when you're homeless, it's like when you're walking, you gotta notice how people are walking towards you. You have to know exactly what's going on around you. You have to be able to understand what your peripheral vision is and seeing if that person is a threat or not by the way that they're hunched over or the way that they're moving. Are they just moving that way just to be, because that's where, are they just waiting for you to get closer as you walk by them? That's just stuff that you pick up. It's like, and if you pay attention, and that's just my ability. It's like one of my things is that I'm just hyper aware of situational awareness. It's like I'm just very hyper aware of humans. I'm very humans are like one of the worst predators on the planet, and it's like, and I'm just very cognizant of that, and I mimic one when I attack people.
Yeah, it was interesting in learning more about you. I mean, I've always known you from different hacking things and conferences and stuff, and just kind of reading more on your background. And I don't know all the specifics, but I found a lot like very relatable to my own childhood in a different way. But kind of growing up in a abusive home where it was like you're very much trying to read the room, right? Because you're trying to avoid the next set of chaos that fires off, and it kind of translates into all this, kind of thing that you have to figure out later in life of the healthy balance of how much constantly are you trying to take in from everybody and stuff. But something you mentioned I thought was really interesting of like, and it seems like a big part of what you do. You mentioned of kind of like your trajectory of getting into this field in general, right? Of wanting to help people, of wanting to be able to kind of like fight back at some level. But it's interesting because I think some folks like, maybe they do that through, other folks in security where it's like, based on some specific new, security research tools, whatever that they might be like more focused on. There's like a very human element to like what you do, right? Not just in the sense of the physical pen test, but just you and the entire vibe of if anybody's ever, caught you at a conference or been lucky enough to, catch one of the awkward hugs, or I think it was one of the last times I saw you was that at Black Hat, right? Like, I guess is that like a big part of like what drives you, of kind of like the, in the sense of like helping people, but helping on a more human level? Like, is that like a fair?
Oh, definitely. I do not like sharing a lot of my stuff on Twitter. It's like, I mean, I do not hide. It's like when, recently, like when I was in Berlin in January, it's like I had a very bad depressive episode where I was like 2 days in my hotel room. I couldn't get out, and I posted some very, unflattering pictures of like, like, and just being very honest about it. It's like, because when I was growing up, I never knew how I was different. It's like, I never knew why I was weird and why I was different. It's like, I do a lot of masking when I'm at conferences. So people don't really see Jayson. They see Jayson E. Street. It's like, it's like, and that's a small variation of what you're getting here. But when I tell people, when you see me with my jewelry on, you're not meeting me. You're meeting Jayson E. Street. That is the mask that I put on to make me able to deal with all the humans around me. And so, so what I've learned is that I need to help out. And so other people will realize, and I've gotten DMs that show this. It's like, and people have reached out. It's like, it's okay. It's like, there's other people that are going through this. You're not alone. This is not something that is unusual. This is something that is different, but not bad. And so that is what I'm trying to do, is just be that voice to others that I didn't have when I was growing up. And also, it's like, I was raised, literally, I'm not even joking, I was raised to be a psychopath. It's like it is amazing all the different things that had to have occurred to keep me from not going to prison before I was 20. And it's like, and in my 20s, it's like I was a horrible person. It's like, but I've made the conscious effort. It's like, I want to do good. I want to be a good person, not what people like to say they're good people, but I literally want to do that. I literally will make that conscious effort of like, I'm going to pull over because this person needs help with their vehicle. It's like I'm going to go and I'm going to help out someone and give them something to eat. It's like, because it's like that is what a good person is supposed to do. And so and it's just that choice. It's like it's not a great choice. It's sometimes it's an inconvenient choice. It's like, but it's still the choice. And sometimes I don't take that choice. It's like, okay, yeah, it's like this should be the good thing, but it's like I'm not. I just don't have time or something like that, and I excuse myself of it. But we're all human, but we forget that, especially online. It's like that you're dealing with other people and other people's emotions and other people's baggage and things that they're going through. And so we all need that grace, and we all need that just, hey, I just want to be here for you. It's like I don't need anything from you. I just want to be here for you. And so that's why I do that at those conferences. It's like I do the awkward hugs because it makes me more approachable. And it makes me more like, okay, it's like, oh, I can do something. It's like a little gimmick, because usually when you see speakers, people are like, oh, I don't want to talk to that person. It's like, oh, they just got off,
they're a superstar. Yeah, like you can't approach them.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. It's like I'm just another hacker. I'm there for the conference. It's like every conference you see me at, you will see me wandering the halls. I'm not inside a green room. I'm not just going to the hotel, go to the talk, and then go back to my hotel or leave. I want to be there for the whole time. I just want to be sitting in a corner on the floor, just working on something or tweeting something. It's like, and I'm approachable, because it's like that is what it's about. It's like it's about us networking. It's about us understanding, and I'm always on, because for that one moment, it's like that's that person's moment, not my moment. That is that person's moment to meet me, to be able to say something or talk to me or exchange something. And I want to make sure that it's a pleasant experience for them.
I was going to ask, just as we were going through that, you mentioned about those moments of grace, and like you feel as a good person in the world, you have that obligation to make those moments happen. Do you feel that's normal as a society these days? Do you feel that's changed, like in the last couple of years, particularly with the pandemic and the isolation?
Yeah, it's like it's totally changed. It's like we have learned as a species. It's like, especially in places like, if you have seen the South in America, where convenience has totally overridden compassion or consideration. We would rather go and say it is inconvenience for me to wear a piece of cloth over my face than to protect someone, my neighbor or loved ones, from dying. And it's something that we don't want to address or look at. But that is what it is. It's like, this is such a horrendous example of human nature, and where we've gotten vaccines, polio vaccine. We've had to go into school in America, to as soon as a child is born, you have to take and you have to show that you've been vaccinated. Infants are vaccinated maybe 1 week after, or then like 2 months after. They get multiple vaccinations. It's like all the time throughout history that has been no issue. It's like smallpox, measles, polio, all these things that they've gotten vaccinations for. But this one, everybody is having a problem with. And I think the key thing is because of the fact that it is so prevalent, we don't like thinking about it.
Mm.
It is something that humans tend to try to not want to think about. Something that is bad is going on. And so they have this barrier where they just try to block and make it bad, where it's like you're thinking at it, it's like, that's bad. We just don't want to think about that anymore.
Do you actually see that sometimes in the physical testing, right? I remember from, like, again,
every time,
right, where it's like it kind of like the story you gave earlier, where it's like they kind of noticed, but they didn't necessarily want to call you out. Like, I'd find that to be common, like where I was, wandering through a hall, clearly shouldn't have been there. Maybe I had my phone out. You're still getting that suspicious eye, but there's that kind of human nature of, they don't
I don't want to make it hard
want
for
the
that
awkward
guy.
situation
Yeah.
almost, right? They're afraid of it being wrong. Like, how much do you think that kind of plays into it of allowing your kind of success to happen when you're doing these tests?
That is basic human nature. Employers need to empower their employees to be impolite. It's like to say, no, you get in trouble if you don't do it. This is one of the worst and most tragic examples of this that I know of. But back in 1941, Pearl Harbor, it's like December 7th. It's like it was one of the first radar stations in the world was at Pearl Harbor. They had an early warning system, a radar system on that island around that Air Force base. And the person manning the radar said, hey, there's some planes coming in from an unknown vector. What do I do? And reports it to the supervisor. The supervisor on shift looks at it, knows that they're coming from an unknown vector in the middle of a war going on around them. And they go and say, oh, that's probably our training planes coming in from California, because there were supposed to be some B-52 bomber training planes coming in from California later that day. Totally disregarded the evidence of what they were seeing to make an excuse for something that it could have been, because what it could have been was more pleasant than the reality, which was harmful and scary. And so we want to not think about that. Prior to 9/11, James Brown was on a flight from Boston to Los Angeles. He reported to the flight attendants and to the FBI and the police there that there were some suspicious people in his first class cabin that he was in that were acting very suspicious, that were acting very unusual, and he reported them. On September 13th or 14th or something like that, after that, the FBI came back to him because it turned out some of those people that were on those planes in 9/11 were actually on his flight. He reported them first, but no one listened to him. They discounted him because it was just too far-fetched. You just didn't want to make the threat actually real. And
Jeez.
That is human nature, and that is what I abused.
So that was interesting, actually. We went to a few kind of extreme situations there. And when I was looking into like your backstory and researching you a little bit from the Googling, one of the things I noticed was you seem to have a trend of liking extremes. Like whether that's I'm going to climb up a pyramid until someone points some guns at you, or diving with crocodiles and sharks. Yeah, what are a couple of those stories you want to share with us? Maybe like one or two, and then really what I want to understand is how does that fearlessness of extreme situations help you with your career?
I have my life has led me to some very weird things. I did not expect to live to 30. It was just amazing. I mean, like literally, it was just unbelievable that happened. But ever since I was 10, I promised myself I would go to see Mont Saint Michel. It's like I used to read National Geographic just because I wanted to see places that were different than me. And so that kept me alive. Literally, that kept me alive to get to this point. So when I was able to start traveling the world, well, then it's not just me. It's more than a need to travel. It's like, this is my promise that I'm keeping to go and experience these things. And it's like, and there's so many things to experience. And so many people go to places and they go to tourist spots and they just see that, and I want to I live in the city that I go to. I don't just tour it. It's like, I like to live there. I like to go and explore. And I don't want to see, I want to see some of the cool things like the pyramids, and I've seen the Taj Mahal, the Eiffel Tower, but I want to go and see the other things. I want to experience other things that not normal tourists will see, like the shark cage diving or the skydiving. It's like, or, walking to a monastery that's built into a cliff in Bulgaria. I want to go to those kind of places and see what else there is. It's like, and I like extremes because one, it's like, because there's humans have a thing in the back of a self-preservation module, right? Well, mine's burned out. So I don't really have that very well. So I freaked everybody out when I was in Saudi Arabia. It's like I literally, there's a thing called the edge of the world. It's like this big cliff plateau, and I'm literally making everybody freak out because I'm like walking straight up to the edge, just looking over. Like, oh, that is awesome looking, because I love heights. And I'm like posing with a picture of right there, and you can see me sitting down, leaning with the picture, and then like this little curve thing of rock outcropping that I'm sitting on. Everybody's freaking out in this picture except for me, because there's parts of the cliff fall off periodically. And I'm like literally over the overhang of one of them, and they're like, but it's like I'm just like having a blast. And
as somebody that doesn't even like standing on ladders, although I always make myself go to heights either way, that sounds terrifying.
Oh, nothing. I love heights. I love being able to see out and just see the city or see the vista. So I always choose to find some place as high as possible. I walked around when I was in Dubai recently. I literally walked on the sky view, where I walked outside of the thing 53 stories up, and I got to walk around the edge of the building on the outside of it. It was awesome. And it's like I got to see the Burj Khalifa. It's like right up there. It was great.
That's right, dude.
So one of the things, obviously, we invite all of our guests on is to give us a bit of their view of the world, and one story that you guys want to talk about. So, Jayson, do you want to just explain to us what the story you wanted to share with us today, the kind of big event? I think you mentioned about breaking into a company, which probably doesn't narrow it for you, but the lessons they took from that.
Yeah, I would. I have a great story. A lot of people, I'm known now. It's like it's very hilarious. It's like I'm known for accidentally robbing the wrong bank while I was in Beirut, Lebanon. But to me, that was a big fail. It's like, because I screwed up. I shouldn't have been there. It's like, and I made the mistake. The cool part was I didn't end up in prison. But it's like, but my favorite story, my biggest success, is actually the story of, it was in the before times. It's like January 2020. I had robbed this company the year before in 2019. And they were talking about like how they'd never been broken in. And I literally, like Mark was talking about, I literally used the phone entryway where I was talking to someone, and I was in the freight elevator and a lobby area, and I was going like, yeah, and then someone comes out of the freight elevator and say, okay, no, don't worry, it's like someone's here, they'll let me in, I'll meet you in your office. And then the guy opens the door because he heard me on the phone talking to the person, and so he lets me in. And so the guy who had hired us is literally getting out of a meeting and sees me at his desk going like, hi, I think you were expecting me. And I've got an employee badge with me that I stole off of someone else's desk. And it's like, and it just freaked them out. So they took that very seriously. So for 2 days, I showed them all these things, and then I educated them. It's like I would then do the education part of it. They took it seriously. They took my lessons. They learned from it. The CEO spent over 10 minutes at his yearly meeting. He took 10 minutes out of his time to make sure the company understood security awareness and what their responsibilities were for the security of the building. It was amazing. So in 2020, I come back looking different. There's a new receptionist there, and I try to get in. Boom. She cuts me off right at the beginning, saying, excuse me, it's like, you need to sign in first. It's like, who are you meeting? It's like, they need to come down and get you. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I signed that, and I need to go to the restroom. I always have to go to the restroom because I get lost going to the restroom. It takes me hours sometimes to find the restroom. I find the server room pretty good, but never find the restroom. And so they let me in. And sure enough, I wander. The restroom was on the left. I turned right. Oops, my bad. And I'm now inside their cubicle area, compromising 2 machines. A lady gets up out of her office and sees me through the glass, and she looks at me, and you can tell she's concerned, and she's about to say something. And this was within 5 minutes. And it's like, and then the person who was supposed to come get me, he comes to get me. He's like, the receptionist reported that she saw you deviate from your path going to the restroom. And I was like, awesome. And through the rest of that, and see, that means that even though I was successful, the compromise only lasted 5 minutes to 10 minutes. That's not going to be a big breach. It's like, because you can now limit it to this one area. Every section for the next 2 days that I went into, even though I was successful on a couple of machines, I got caught. I got caught every section. Not having to. I will make sure that I get caught on an engagement. But this was not me trying to get caught. They legitimately caught me. It was amazing. And it was like every single place. So that means their breach was only a matter of minutes to an hour versus 7 months or a year of being inside there. It was the best success story I ever had because I failed at every section to fully compromise that area. And that is what we're supposed to be striving for in red teaming. You want them to win. You want them to succeed. The only reason why the red team exists is to make the blue team better. This whole mythos of red team rock stars is absurd. It's like their only function is to make the blue team rock, to make them be able to defend their systems, to be able to find the vulnerabilities so they can patch them and understand it and get company buy-in. I'm not an adversary. I'm an advocate for them. It's like I'm just modeling that of an adversary.
I love that because I've seen at companies before where you can almost have the red team develop into almost like a toxic part of the culture where it's just you're just trying to shove it in people's faces and the gotcha. And it's very much not that team game of red and blue and then pushing things forward. I mean, it's interesting with the example you gave, right? I mean, I think that's what, in some sense, is one of the most rewarding things of working in security is to see a company or somebody you're helping, like things click, they're changing. There's this evolution. Exactly. You can see them being more secure. And I think we also, plenty of us have the times where, it's hard where for whatever reason, maybe the company's just looking more to check a box because it's something on a compliance list somewhere else. How do you kind of think about that? Like, do you see, like, with the sort of work that you do in the kind of physical space, like, do you see some of the same themes of the kind of times where I find it like depressing, where it is more of people just checking a box and not really trying to like learn and evolve from it, or is there something kind of different in your space because it's so much more relatable in the human sense, right? That that it tends to click more for companies and they really try to do something about it. Like how have you seen that over time?
Yeah, mine is like a niche because by the time a company comes to me, they understand. I make it perfectly clear when I first start talking to them. It's like what I do. It's like, and how it's not like a regular red teaming. So it's like mine's not a checkbox. Mine is actually an evaluation or an educational experience. I tell people when I compromise them, it's like, look, I'm not here to test you. I'm here to teach you. It's like there are no fails. Everybody wins because those they're not losses, they're lessons. It's like, and that's how I approach the whole situation. It's a training exercise. So that is what I'm doing. I'm doing a security awareness engagement. I'm not doing a test or a physical test. So there are some companies that will get in and they're expecting to be like successful or a check box, and that usually goes horribly with them. I did a DoD contractor once in DC, and they canceled the whole effing engagement on the first day because I ended up in their server room and they didn't think that I would actually make it into their server room. And I was like, well, then why did you put that in scope? It's like, well, we didn't think you'd be able to do it. It's like, well, then that's not my fault, is it? It's like, so.
You'd think they'd be thankful at that point, wouldn't you? Like,
yeah, no,
hey,
they were not thankful.
What a great investment this was.
No, they canceled the whole engagement. And then the next day I was in a 3-hour meeting with all the C's and the O's and everything, talking about what had happened. But I turned it in. Eventually, it was very hostile at the very beginning. I turned it into something that people understood, even if they were sort of resentful still, about why this was an educational experience and why they needed to learn it. And I think that's one of the problems. And Mark hit on it really well. It's like, that is one of the problems with our culture. It's like this toxic masculinity kind of thing of like, I'm here to like, I'm going to go punch you in the face and see if you've got a plan. And I'm like, literally, that is just ridiculous. It's like, and every time I hear someone say something like that, I cringe, because first of all, that's not even an original quote from Mike Tyson. He stole that from an old general from the Prussian Wars and stuff. He just bastardized it to make it sound more macho. So, but it's just that whole toxic thing where it's like, we got to be in there. We got to like beat them up and that's all stemmed from, because when I was in red teaming, I'll tell you where that stemmed from me. And it probably does from a lot of people that don't want to admit it. I have very low self-esteem. It's like, I have very low self-esteem. It's like, I'm very self-conscious. And I feel if I'm not breaking everything, if I'm not totally compromising them, then I'm not giving them their money's worth, that I'm not showing my value. And so I get caught up in more about trying to prove to myself and to others that I am good at breaking in and destroying their stuff, than I am of actually trying to help the situation and give them information and things that they can find actionable. And that is where we need to break that and start realizing that we're there as an advocate, not an adversary. It's like, we need to stop this adversarial relationship with them and start understanding that, yes, we're supposed to model and emulate an adversary, but that doesn't mean we have to be that person.
So following on from that, so I'm emulating an adversary, but I'm actually your advocate. What are some of those kind of basic changes you recommend? Or, going back to your story where you kind of entered into the bank and, everyone let you through because you were on the phone. How does an organization make it harder to be breached again in those circumstances? What is it you say?
I tell them about the 3 E's. I talk it to the upper management. First of all, one of the key things I do that I try to be basic. It's like, not pumpkin spice latte basic, but, I try to go and say, because a lot of red teams also like to overcompensate. They like to go and say, oh, we went into the skylight, we went through, we hacked into the access card system, and it's like, and we got no, I literally promise my company I will do no more than 2 hours of Google research. I don't use Maltego, ReconNG. I don't use any of those tools. I use Google and the company's website. And then I tell them that I will literally, it's like when you tell a company, oh, we went in and broke all those things and we used a 0 day and we dropped a 0 and we got in, they're going to go, their first reaction, I kid you not, no matter what they tell you, they're like, oh, good, we're protected. Because look how much work you had to do. You're a nation state. We don't have to worry about nation states. We're just like a bank in Poughkeepsie. We're going to be fine. It's like, we thought we were, if you had to use all those kind of techniques, you must have been like, we must be really good secured. I tell people, I walked into your bank in 2 minutes, or like my quickest one was 15 seconds. I compromised your bank and I got full access to everything. And your manager walked me to each station and compromised the machines with me. You need to fix that. There's no defense to that. There's no defense to that. They have to acknowledge that there is a problem and that they have to do something about it. So all my stuff is literally, people talk about APT, we like to say that it's advanced persistent threats, which is what you tell your shareholders and the public when you get popped. But let's be real. APT stands for adequate fishing technique. That is what APT stands for. And I do bad, basic, adorable destruction. I just try to go in and I try to look like I'm happy and smiling and just like laughing. And I just try to mess you up in the worst possible way that I can with what I have, period.
I mean, the question's probably already been answered, but I got to ask. So, we were talking earlier of, just some of the adventures that you've been on and how you were saying you seek out heights and everything else. So clearly that kind of fear switch is different, than maybe others. And like, I remember doing physical pen tests, even though when you're literally paid to be there, it's all okay. But just like the level of nervousness that I'd still have where I'm like just waiting to get caught and you just feel so out of place. Do you have any of that, or is that switch just not there, and that's part of what makes you more successful in doing these things, where you don't have that level of kind of nerves in some sense when you're doing this?
Yes or no? I still get nervous giving a talk. I could not sleep that much because I was doing this interview. It's like I still get nervous, but my nervousness is different. When I'm doing an engagement, I'm scared that I'm not going to be successful, and then people are going to think that I'm oh, he was a fraud all along. Oh, he didn't know what he was doing. Oh, it's like, we thought you were good. It's like and that's my biggest fear. It's just people finding out what a fraud I am. It's like, because that's what I mean. I've got video. It's like in this talk that I'm doing this year, it's like I literally show you video of me robbing a bank and you just see me robbing. But still in the back of my head, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, I'm not a professional. It's like, this is ridiculous. It's like, eventually at some point it's going to come out. So that's my fear. And people talk about like, well, of course you got a contract. That's why you can get in and you can break into these places. That's so stupid. Okay. Because I guarantee you, when I worked on a gang task force, it's like, I never met a criminal who thought they were going to get caught, who were expecting to get caught and thought it would be okay. Criminals commit crime because they think they're going to get away with it. They are confident because they think they're going to get away with the crime. It is the same exact demeanor that I am mimicking, is that, yes, I'm committing a crime. I have to be careful about getting caught, but of course I'm going to succeed because I'm a criminal. They're stupid, or they wouldn't be criminals, or they'd be in white collar crime where the real money's at.
Well, I thought that was really interesting, that innate fear that hasn't gone away. Do you ever put yourself in the shoes of the victim? Like, how do you think, as you're kind of walking in and playing your narrative and story out in front of them, how do they feel? Like, you've walked back up to them afterwards and gone, hey,
every time
happened.
It's like, I feel it every time because that's part of the process. It's like, if you don't have empathy for the person that you're compromising, and I mean, there was one time it was so horrendous. It's like, I mean, I've literally, there was a bank manager in Beirut where it's like, I had full access. I walked in 2 minutes and just like within 2 minutes, I was behind the teller line for over 30 minutes. I had full control. They let me eat everything except for in the vault because I asked to go into the vault and they wouldn't let me. But I tell you, I went and talked to everybody, and I told the guy my premise was I was going to do a refit of the whole entire office because I went in there as help desk and I fixed a scanner and I looked at one of the other machines because the manager was like needed some help. And so I went with my thing. That's why you never try to be a plumber unless you know how to plumb, right? Because it's like sometimes they'll ask you like, oh yeah, we're looking for help desk. And I can do that. So I did all that. And then afterwards, and I told them what was going on, the manager raises his hand like he's in school. And I'm going, yes. He's like, but the new equipment, are we still getting the new equipment? And I'm like, no, I lied. I'm a bad guy. And it's like, and he just looked at me like, I felt like I kicked a puppy. It's like literally like he opened up an Xbox PS5 under the Christmas tree, and it was actually a box full of socks. It's like, it was horrendous. And so I felt really bad about that. But you have to understand that we have to approach every single person that we compromise. You need to approach them at the very beginning going, look, you're not in trouble. This was not a mark against you. You were not properly trained by this. And so your company, wanting you to understand it better, has hired me to teach you what to look for. So this is a learning exercise, not a test where you pass or fail, but it's just a learning exercise where you learn something. I do not record the names of people who fail, and I always make sure that I get caught. I mean, literally, sometimes I've had to go out of my way to get caught. It's like, but I will get caught, and then I give them something to look up to. It's like, you got to give them something to look up to because we're dealing with people. You know, I've never seen a server get upset because it got popped by MSO 867. Okay. But humans get upset when they feel like they failed. Their job could be on the line. They could be under a review. They could be on probation. It's like, you never know their stories. I do training. And one of the things I do when I do my training classes on doing these security awareness kind of engagements, we go through a mock exercise through the whole class. And the end part is they then have to talk to the person after they compromised them. And they have to deal with the emotions and the guilt that person feels because they failed. They didn't do right. It's like they're going to be worried about their job. They're going to be worried about what other people think about around them. And you have to understand all that.
It sounds like there's a lot of learning in that. And I think one of the things what happens if everyone does learn from that? So you go out there, you do your thing, organizations like the general standard lifts so much that you're almost not able to successfully breach an organization again. What would you do then?
That would be awesome. That would be one of the best things in the world. It's like, you got to say, I get paid either way. Red teamers get paid every way. Either way, it's like we don't have to be adversarial to them. It's like we're still getting paid. It's like that. I love reaffirming that someone's doing a good job. Why is that such a bad thing? I love it when people do good. It's like that is something that I strive for, is for people to do good. It's like we need more people doing good. There are so many great people in our industry. It's like that we need to put, because they're being good people, not just good technology. It's like people look at Jaysons and they say, it's like, oh, man, Jayson, you're so helpful. That wasn't me. It's like, that was Adam Laurie. That was FX. That was Dan Kaminsky. Because when I was a nobody noob and stuff, they treated me like I was just a regular hacker. Even though I had put them wrongly on a pedestal, they treated me and they voluntarily got off that pedestal and met me and talked to me and was there and taught me. It's like, that's what we need. We need more people just saying, hey, if you put me on a pedestal, I'm just going to fall. It's like, let's just get me off there, because I'm just like you. The same kind of frailty, the learning, we're all learning. And it's like, and so you want to celebrate the wins of everyone, not just the people that we have that have the most likes or the most retweets. We need to be able to so any client that I have, it's like, I will shout to the client's not paying me more to tell that story from 2020. They may not even know that I tell that story everywhere now, but I love it because they succeeded.
It's led on nicely actually to one of our kind of final questions, and this was actually left by a previous guest. And in terms of kind of paying it forward and in helping others to learn, what's an area of attack surface that doesn't get enough love or attention from your point of view?
Well, we all know what my answer is going to be. It's like, I would say, I'm going to throw a curveball on this one. I say one of the biggest ones is egress filtering. Companies are not spending enough time and resources to actually monitor and respond to traffic leaving their company. It's like we're so default assuming that inside is safe when it's not, that we're like block everything that's coming in. That's great. But are you really looking about what's coming out? Because now more and more attacks are using layer 8, using the human layer to actually download the Trojan or the command center, and then they just talk out to the command center, and then no one sees it. It's like, and so we need to get better at it. This whole thing about walls has always been ridiculous. Okay, it's like, oh, we're going to build a big wall. We're going to make Paraguay pay for it. All that stuff is stupid. Okay, because what we need to do now as companies and enterprises, it's not about how big the wall is. How well do you have it manned? How well are you looking inward? Because now the biggest thing for a breach, to minimize a breach's impact, is going to be how quickly do you detect it, how efficiently you respond to it. Those are the only two metrics. Breaches are going to happen. How quickly can you detect it? How quickly can you respond to it? Those are going to be the decision makers if your company survives or not.
You mentioned some of the people that helped and kind of inspired you along the way. Quite possibly there's somebody, a younger person even right now, listening to this and listening to your story, and then trying to find their own kind of footing in life. What would you want to kind of tell somebody? What would you want to say to somebody who's maybe kind of in a similar position you were way back when, and trying to find a path forward?
Well, first of all, don't be me, be better. And second of all, it's like the biggest gatekeeper that we will face in this world is ourselves. It's like, so we need to remember that we're hackers. So screw the gate, jump the fence. It's like one of the biggest things that I keep hearing is people talking about, well, you need to know programming to be in information security, or I don't know how to program. I'm here, I'm valid, and I should be here. It's like sometimes I don't think I should be, but it's like I'm here, so get used to it. It's like, so stop trying to let gatekeepers dictate what you're supposed to be, or what you're supposed to know, or what you're supposed to look like. It's like I keep coming across this where people keep feeling like, well, I don't know if I belong in this community. I'm like, you were born a hacker. Everybody was born a hacker. And people always think that computers are necessary for hacking is idiotic. Tesla was a hacker. Leonardo da Vinci was a hacker. Ada Lovelace was a hacker. One of the biggest hackers in the world, Hedy Lamarr. Oh my gosh. We have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi because of her. It's like, and even she resented the fact that people kept talking about her beauty and her body when it was her brain and her hacking abilities that really changed this planet. It's like those are hackers. It's like they have nothing to do with computers sometimes. Ada Lovelace created a computer language programming before the computers existed. So we need to understand hacking does not equate to computers. Hacking is basically a 3-year-old. Everybody who's dealt with a 3-year-old. Why? Why is that there? Who's that? What's that? Who's that? What? But why? But why? It's that ability and that curiosity and that imagination to say, this is what the world has told me something was supposed to be, but what if I do it differently? What if you put this into the equation? That in its essence is hacking. So if we were all born hackers, how can it be bad? It's like, and why do we forget that part of it? It's like, it's just being that curiosity. It's like, it has nothing to do with the computer side of it. So you belong in this community. It's like, you're a hacker. It doesn't matter where you come from. It's like, it doesn't matter how you got here. It's like, I used to be a janitor at McDonald's. I was the best effing janitor at McDonald's for 2 years in a row. Because if you're going to do something, you do it good. And it's like, and you do it right. And I'm proud of that. That's on my bio on my website. Okay. I mean, right up there with having tea with the Lebanese general. It's like, it's like, or scaling the Great Wall of China. It's like, I was an effing great janitor. It's like, so that's what we need to be proud of. It's that not of what our status is or what the community says our status is, but what we do. I have a friend named Teton who's got like less than probably like around 100 followers or so. I don't know. It's like he's got so small followers. He doesn't stay on Twitter. One of the scariest mother effing hardcore hackers you're ever going to see. It's like, or never hear about, basically. But also an amazing, wonderful, kind family man, wonderful individual, wonderful friend to have. But no one knows about him. He does all these amazing hacks. He creates payloads. He's helped me create a payload for a tool that I got to look all cool on stage. It's like showing. And it's like, and I made sure that I gave credit. It's like the whole next slide was giving him credit for it because we should. It's like, but he doesn't care. He does it because that's him, his hacker spirit. He likes to create. He likes to find vulnerabilities. He likes to find ways in and help people. He doesn't care about if people know his name or not. It's like, and there's so many people that you don't know about in this community because they don't go after the likes or retweets. It's like my follower count does not validate who I am. It's like, it's what I say and how I act should validate me. It's like,
Absolutely,
we should never go by the who's popular. It's who helps.
Love it, dude. Jayson, man, it has been absolutely a pleasure, pleasure even. I think one of the things for us, and kind of the whole point of us even trying to do this podcast is really kind of connect and bring some of the human connection that I think gets lost in security so much when we're very focused down on the tech and the bits and bytes. And there's plenty of people, companies that talk about wanting to be more empathetic in security. I think there's few people that actually live that with a very deep sense of compassion. You're clearly one of those people, and I could speak for Carl and me. We're absolutely stoked to have talked to you this morning, and thank you so very much, man, for being here.
It's been so incredible. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.